This is recording right now.
This is so good.
Alright, welcome to Sequel Podcast, the early morning edition.
The early morning edition.
For you Sunday folks that like to get up and read your paper, this is for you. Even though it's Saturday.
Saturday's close enough to Sunday. They are adjacent.
Yeah, they might not even listen to this until Tuesday night, so it's like...
So they don't care what they do.
Yeah, absolutely not, so
But they should know that it is quite uncharacteristic of me to be out of bed
at 6 in the morning.
At 5 in the morning.
At 5 in the morning.
It took me that long to get dressed and...
Get your ass over here?
Just broom the snow off of my truck and warm it up.
Yeah, right, that's right. As we were saying.
And then it was...
Shortly before.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, welcome to Sequel Podcast. This is, I am Matt Bonta.
This is, I am Cory Easley.
And, we're eating breakfast.
Which is also uncharacteristic for me. But I do appreciate the cooked efforts. It's quite tasty.
It is a tri-meat breakfast burrito.
Ham and sausage and...
Bacon.
Bacon! Have you seen that video?
I have not seen that video. I've not seen any videos about bacon, because I hate how people love bacon.
There's a little, I think it's a little girl.
Could be a boy.
I don't know, it's just curly hair. They're pretty unisex when they're little. They look, yeah, I mean, you can't tell sometimes.
Okay.
So there's this little, probably, I don't know, 18-month-old in a high chair. And her parents give her some bacon. And it's like just a little piece of, like this little strip of bacon.
Mm-hmm.
And she puts it in her mouth, like she's gonna, chew on it or whatever. I don't imagine she has many teeth. And she just makes this face, like her eyes closed, like, oh my god, this is great bacon. And then somebody off camera asks her, what is that? And the little kid goes, bacon. And then everybody starts laughing, and then she continues to say bacon in a more and more high-pitched voice.
It progressively gets louder.
Progressively gets louder, yeah.
All right, instead of beers today.
What do you call these?
These are mimosas.
Mimosas. I will say that this is a first for me. I've never had one.
This is a semi-first for me as well.
I've never, the wife drinks them when we go out to buffets and stuff. It's an interesting flavor combination.
It is not a screwdriver, I can assure you.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm not much of a champagne guy.
Neither am I. Like, usually I drink it when they're handing it out.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing you do.
Well, both wine and champagne. You always see people, we'll have a glass of wine. Or when people are celebrating, they pop open a bottle of champagne. But as for me, wine tastes very pungent and rotten. For all those wine drinkers out there, they just fucking want to kill me. And then champagne, I don't know, spoiled rotten soda.
Well, what do you think of the orange juice combination?
I would prefer the screwdriver version. I guess that alcohol kind of tastes kind of vodka-y.
I don't know. It's not as sharp.
Sparkling vodka.
Sparkling vodka.
That's what it is.
So what's
I'm sure everyone's.
Yeah, everyone is like, yeah, these fucking assholes.
So like, we're going back to sleep on this Sunday morning. These guys are so fucking boring. This is not the most riveting episode ever. Well, I called you up. I didn't call you up, actually. I texted you.
we always communicate via text message.
I hit the old Morse code telegraph last night. In the hopes that someone was on the other end listening, writing down the message that was coming in. And I waited patiently for a respond Morse code telegraph message. And Cory was like, no, we can't do it tonight. So I was like, let's
See,
do an early
I'm a
morning
fucking
edition. You probably just got lazy last night and didn't want to come out.
It was cold outside.
See,
Not that
I
it's
knew
not
it.
cold outside right now.
Oh, I know. Not that it didn't snow last. And you didn't have to fucking...
Drive here and 3 feet of snow.
Dude,
There's
you know
not
what?
that much snow.
It was fucking... I had to drive slow to fucking Smith's this morning.
You're a savage.
But...
You got up and went to the store in enough time to make breakfast before I
Right
got
on
here?
time, dude. It was done right when you got here, man.
Nice.
So... Anyways... I went and saw The Revenant this weekend, which you did not go and see.
I was unable to attend.
I don't know if we teased it last week or not, or if we talked about it off mic, but...
I think we talked about it off, but regardless of the fact,
plan
how was it?
Well, see, now my problem was... I went into the movie fucking falling asleep to begin with. So I was super tired and, like... I was fucking thinking, God, this is going to be like a 3-hour movie. Incidentally enough, it's only 2.5 hours. They could have cut out about an hour, half an hour to an hour of that movie. But then again, I think I'm just getting old and thinking that, like, God, I don't want to sit around for movies for so long. But then again, I also happen to think that these directors are a little too in love with their work and they need to fucking cut the cord and learn to scrap some stuff.
Well, and the point of a movie, the point of film, the way it's been done, is to boil it down, to keep an interesting story.
Right. Make money.
You shouldn't have...
Now, well, I mean, look, when I say to make money, it sounds a little selfish and kind of shallow. But I mean, if a director makes a movie and it doesn't make money, if an actor makes a movie and it doesn't make money, they're not going to be sought after to make more movies in the future. They're going to think, oh, this guy's box office poison. This guy didn't make us money. Because it takes money to make a movie, and people want that money back.
Yes.
So, and on top of that, if you make a 3-hour movie, you're only going to get so many showings at the movie theater. And then the movie theater's going to make less money because your movie is too long.
Yep.
That being said, what were you going on about?
I think that the point of making the movie, succinct, if you will, it doesn't, we don't have to be short, but I mean, 2 hours I think is going on a long movie.
That's what you would call a long movie.
I think after you hit the 2-hour mark, I think you're pushing the line.
Okay. I'll agree with that.
The 2.5, the 3-hour, whatever movies, these super long. It's like, make 2 movies, cut the fucking film a little bit, and tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the movie's about. When you have to have a movie that's so long, you either have too much shit in it, like there's too much to do, too much to talk about.
I've got more than one movie.
You've either got more than one movie, more than one storyline, more
stuff that could have been
more outside stuff of the plot that you
subplots.
Yeah, and I get it. It's storytelling,
Right, you
and
write a
it's
movie.
hard. It's hard because when you're writing books, when you're writing or reading a book, you have all this room. You don't care how many pages
exactly.
it could be 9 million pages. People would still fucking read it.
It's a slow burn. Whoops.
Because a book has to build.
You're not going to sit down and read
everything
a book in
around
an hour and a half.
Exactly, and you don't.
This 2-hour book was way too hard.
You don't intend to get everything in a really short book.
Right.
Books are written to explain the scenery and to tell you what it smelled like, and
sometimes you write until it's done.
Exactly. But with movies, you have to put enough in there so that people feel the scenery and the backdrop and the background of the story.
Exposition.
Absolutely.
May kill you in a movie. Too much exposition.
If you go on too long, I've watched movies that, they drag and drag and drag. one movie particularly that I remember having watched over the last summer was Black Hat.
Yep.
It was
I didn't get to see that one. I was the one I watched. That's Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth, and he's a hacker, and he's in
I
prison.
heard it wasn't very good.
It's not a great movie. Like it's not on my top 10 list for the year or anything, but it's not a bad movie either.
Mm-hmm.
Because they tried to stay true to how things are done as far as the hacking goes. They didn't go over the top and make it seem like this invisible voodoo shit that nobody can do.
Right.
It's like it's a realistic computer process that people know how to do and they exploit.
Plenty of people.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they pushed it that way, but the exposition of the story was a little slow and it drug a little bit. Once you got in it, past maybe the half hour to 40-minute mark, it was like boom, 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 action. And, that's also the downside of a movie that you're writing about hackers. It's computer stuff. Hacking is not exciting.
Look at this guy type.
This guy types so awesome. So, and it's, there are different movies.
What was he hacking to do?
I
don't even remember.
I
See,
do.
that tells you exactly.
It was convoluted. It started out that they wanted the authorities took this guy from prison because he had already been put in prison for hacking. They take him out of prison. They're like, "Hey,
sounds like The Rock.
We're gonna make you a deal. We need you to help us find this other hacker asshole."
Sounds like The Rock.
That's doing something that we don't want him to do. And he's like, "Well, I'll help you, but I get to be free. You're going to let me out of prison."
Sounds like The Rock.
Yeah. And then, here it comes. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to help you." And then he starts helping him. And then guess what?
He tries to get away.
He gets fucked.
Okay, he gets fucked.
And then he ends up getting away and with the money and the girl. And yeah, so I mean, it's the same. Now that it's funny you bring that up. It's actually really similar
to The Rock.
As far as storyline goes, like the way the story's told.
Look,
we've like that.
I think I don't know if someone said this. I think someone said this. That we've reached a point where every story that can be told has been told, and they're all just different variations on that story. What was I watching? I was watching something, and I was like, "This is the same story as about 100 other things that I've seen or read." Avatar is one of those movies. And they remade Point Break. I'm not sure if we talked about this or not. I think we have.
We talked about them having done it.
Did we talk about Fast and the Furious is basically the Point Break remake. Didn't need another Point Break. Right. I think we talked about it, so I don't want to go over it too much. You got a story where a guy goes undercover to see if this group of people are the bad guys. He kind of falls in love with the leader guy, smitten with him, let's say, not falls in love.
Right.
Doesn't have to be a sexual kind of thing. Could be in a different version of the story. Whether it's a guy or a girl leader, but, dude is smitten with the charismatic way this guy handles his life. And he's like, "It can't be him, it can't be him." Lo and behold, it is him.
And there's always
and he lets him go.
There's always a woman.
There's a woman,
somewhere,
a sister, or a current
girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend, somebody that's in the crew or attached to the crew somehow.
Right,
That the investigating cop has to fall in love with.
I'm shaking my head for the people that can't see. And this is so funny. When me and Rose got together and I started going and watching the Filipino movies, which for some reason I never knew about, plays on a weekly basis at Park Lane.
That's interesting.
There's, it either runs for a couple weeks, but there's always a new one in rotation every single time you go there. And they always have a poster right up front, too.
No shit.
No shit, man.
This is something I was unaware of.
The weirdest fucking... I think the entire society of Reno, Nevada has no idea that there is a Filipino movie. And it gets enough money to where they put the poster right outside. You're walking by, you see your big movies, your fucking Avengers, your rom-com, and then there's a Filipino movie poster right there next to it.
And nobody's ever seen it.
Tom Cruise, Adam Sandler, Filipino guy, Filipino woman, Filipino movie. What is this? Must be good, right? Because they put the poster out front. Must be popular. But pretty much every single one of those movies, there's a guy, there's a girl. They hate each other. There's another guy involved to prevent them from getting together. At the end of the movie, third wheel is gone, the two get together. Every single movie is the same story. Man and woman need to get together. Third guy, second guy, preventing them from doing it. By the end of the movie, he's out of the way. They solve their issues, whether they hate each other, whether they're in another relationship. Problem solved. And you know what? It's always, it's Taming of the Shrew. William Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. Pretty much every single one of those movies is the same.
Interesting.
But you know what? They're good. Like, if you're not trying to go and see something amazing, they're actually not so bad. There was one that was kind of blah, but for the most part, I can sit back and, I can get into them, and I know who these people are now. Because I watch the TV shows with her, and what they do, what they like to do, and it's funny. Because back in, like, the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, actors would sign a contract for a studio, and the studio would hold a contract for 100 actors, 100 actresses, and they would use them exclusively, and they couldn't go to other studios unless, they cut a deal. They're like, oh, we want so-and-so in our movie. Okay, we'll do that if you let us use this person. That's how it is in the Philippines right now.
It's like baseball.
Well, yeah, they're contract players, and there's a couple, I think there's like at least 2 different studios over there.
That's interesting.
And then what they like to do is they'll take a guy and a girl, and if the audience is like them, those are the only 2 people you'll see together in each movie. They'll put them in this movie, and that movie, and that movie, and they're in this TV show together. So they're in 4 or 5 different things.
I think that's just because it's a smaller community.
It might be. So, like, if all the Filipinos like guy A and girl H together,
that's the combination.
That's the combination from then on out.
Until they maybe, introduce or find another couple that works, or
right, and then they just rotate them out.
And it sucks to say it, but we keep saying it. It's a formula. It's math.
Yeah.
You find something that works, and you do it.
If it's not fixed, or if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Why do you think we keep seeing reboots and
remakes
and sequels, and sequels to shit that's been fucking out for 20 years?
Right. Well, that's the popular thing right now. Is like,
yeah. We went through.
Where is Delta Force 5? Why have we not made Delta Force 5? Where is that movie? Chuck Norris?
Yeah.
Come back. You haven't done anything in a while. Expendables 2.
Expendables. He was he in 3 also?
No, he wasn't in 3.
Okay. I haven't seen it since it came out, but yeah. Interestingly enough.
But anyways, I saw The Revenant. It was a little long. But like I said, I went in tired, so I fell asleep a couple times, but I only fell asleep during the parts where nothing was happening, which lets you know that movie was too long. It's because I could watch it and fall asleep 3 times and not know what the movie was, and know what the movie was still about.
Right.
Because it wasn't like I missed the scene where the dude talked to the bad guy and he revealed the plot. A lot of the movie is you got a bunch of fur trappers, the tracker, the scout that the military hired for them gets attacked by a bear, and then they're on their way back to the fort with what they were able to keep after the Indian raid right at the beginning of the movie. They decide it's too hard for 20 people to be lagging behind for this one guy. So they're like, okay, a couple of you hang back, the rest are going to go, and we'll come back for you, or we'll see you when you get there. The one dude gets tired of dragging this dead body, buries him, leaves him for dead. And then from that point on, dude was still alive and is chasing after this guy for the rest of the movie. That's the plot. And on top of that, he's fighting himself with all these wounds and shit.
Right.
And Indians come along. There's a couple different things that get in his way, which lets you know they probably could have taken a couple of those things away, cut the movie back to $1.45.
Well, like I said, when you start knocking on that 2 hour mark, you start looking at a movie that's too.
It's not like they started the movie with like, you need to complete these 5 tasks, and you watch all those 5 tasks, or else you won't be successful by the end of the film.
They drop you in the middle of the film, you don't know what's going on.
Right, did you miss the first 2-3 tasks, whatever, you see the last 2, it's like, well, why did that happen, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just like, you come in, someone came in, if someone were to come in, the last 45 minutes, I could have been like, oh, they left him for dead, he's chasing after this guy. And
then we go, oh, cool. Yeah. And then you would understand the plot from there.
Absolutely. I mean, he was attacked by a bear at one point, that's why he's all fucked up, but from then on...
Pretty much that plus whatever happens in between.
Absolutely.
So, I think you're right. These guys are in love with their work a little too much, and which is hard enough. You know, when you're making something, you're making a movie, you're making a film.
Well, from personal experience, Street Meets Pavement, I wanted that movie to be as long as possible. I wanted to leave as much in there as I could. I wanted it longer. When I came to God Salt, I wanted that movie shorter. I wanted to cut out as much of that as possible, and did. I cut out one flashback scene. I told Greg, hey, cut out as many of these fucks as you can. It's too much swearing. You know, I don't really like this scene. It's going on for too long. It's boring me. Let's cut out what we can. You know, the scene where the 2 chicks are talking, where, you know, Kelly's having a revelation about Patrick. I'm like, let's cut this down, because suddenly we're in the middle of the movie and it has stopped. So that we can watch these 2 people talk to each other.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Greg, let's just cut out what we can and move on. And it still ended up a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I cut everything I could.
But I think, in that light, I think you did well. Cutting it back. And I think that it's hard to do, but if you respect your own work, you can do it.
Yeah.
And you have to do it.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, you run the risk of the too much stuff that you left in dragging down what you should have.
Cut the fat, keep the muscle, man.
What should have been cut down to. So, and if it gets boring, I mean, we've talked about movies this last year, that you get in the middle of the movie, and if you can fall asleep in the movie for, you know, and it doesn't have to be for very long, but if you can fall asleep during the movie because it's boring.
Look, it's the worst thing ever when I go and watch a movie that I was really excited about, and suddenly I don't even want to be there anymore. Like, that is the worst thing ever. You know, I had this revelation back when I lived in Denver, and I went and saw Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Like, you watch that movie and you think, oh, well, that's kind of crazy and kind of cool. Looks like it could be fun. A lot of action in it. And I sat there in the movie theater watching the movie, and I was like, do I not like movies anymore? Because this should be a sure thing.
Right.
I thought I was, like, outgrown movies. I thought I moved past them. I thought, you know, my life was suddenly taking a turn. And that's not in, like, a, you know, kind of jokey way, but, like, I honestly was like, what is this? Why do I not feel excited?
Yeah, why don't I like this movie?
Because I should like it. Fortunately, that was a big year for good movies, and I was like, okay, no, I still like movies. I moved on from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and realized that it was just that movie. You know, you can't just put a bunch of action scenes in a movie and think that it's suddenly good.
Yeah, I mean, action is what gets people excited, but you have to be building a story with
right,
it.
I want my mind to latch on to something, put the action scenes in to keep me on the edge of my seat, put in the, you know, the talking scenes to keep my mind stimulated.
Sure. And, you know, I don't know about everybody, but I like thinking through movies.
Absolutely.
I like movies that make me think, and it's not that I want to spoil it for myself. I don't want to, like, oh, I've figured it out.
Right.
But I like to think through it and be like, okay, now I know what's going on, and I don't necessarily look at it from maybe the writer or the director's point of view, where I think, okay, this is what they want me to know. I think of, you know, this is what they've shown me, but they've also given me these other clues. Mm-hmm. And I like to try to put that stuff together, because that part entertains me. It's like a puzzle.
It's like a puzzle.
And I like putting those together.
Absolutely.
In movies. I always have.
But it's not always necessary.
It's not. And like I said, it's my favorite thing to do, because it makes me feel smart, first of all, when I'm watching a movie and I go, oh yeah, I gotta fucking know what's going on here. And even with well-written TV shows,
absolutely,
you can do that. And You know, a lot of people don't need that experience, but I think a really, really good movie, good writing, can give both parties what they need. I can sit there and think about it and figure it out, while the guy who doesn't want to think about it can watch the movie and enjoy it.
Well, look, check this out. So if you go and you make a dish, a food dish, everything needs to work.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the meal may be bland.
Sure.
So the actors need to do their job, the director needs to do their job, the writer needs to do their job, not to mention all the people behind the scenes that we don't ever see. You know, the cinematography, lighting, makeup, costumes, special effects.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that goes on.
You know, the guys that tape down the cables, you know, so no one trips on them, you know. It's not just, you know, this movie is Tom Cruise, you know.
Well, if you could make a movie with one person, there would be no skill involved.
Absolutely.
You know, if there was one thing that made a movie, everybody could do it. You know?
And, you know, because the problem is everyone thinks they can't do it right now. Suddenly we are in an industry that is flooded with 1 million direct-to-video, 1 million direct-to-instant video, and suddenly now I'm trying to do something in a business where I am on the bottom, and so is everyone else. So at the bottom of the garbage pile, I can't really work my way up that easily. And I'm fighting tooth and nail to do my best, and it's like I'm drowning.
Well, you're the piece of garbage stuck to the bottom of the garbage pile.
Right, and you know...
Which is not to say anything about your writing or your work.
Right, and you know, we went over all this.
And it's the fact of the matter. It's a saturated market.
It's super saturated.
Because look at the technology that's available. Look at the technology that's available.
You got your cell phone, you can cut and edit your own movie.
Exactly. You can
upload it to YouTube
right from your phone.
Right.
In a lot of cases,
everybody can just take their phone and do everything and just upload it, and suddenly it's all there.
I mean, the film quality that's available, and it comes down to some other factors, I think, that make. I mean, money being one of them. You got to be able to get your product in front of an audience.
Money and talent.
And you know, you can have some of the talents that are necessary to make a film, but if you don't have all the talents that are necessary, you're not getting there.
Right, you know,
so
chain's only as strong as its weakest link.
Absolutely. I've been watching, on a side note,
Game of Thrones.
Not yet. That's my next binge series. I'm gonna get there. A lot of The Walking Dead. I just watched the first 5 seasons.
It lost me at 3. It lost me at 3. Man,
yeah.
I thought season 3 was just the worst thing ever.
Which one? I watched them so fast. In
season 3 is the first. Is they're in the prison.
Okay.
And the mayor comes up for the first time. That's the
first time
governor. The governor.
Yeah. Mayor. The mayor. Hotel the mayor.
The governor, and about midway through that season, the governor and Rick meet up at like a corn silo.
Right.
And it was just
and he's
like, give me.
That one was a little slow.
That was the worst fucking episode. At that point, I was just like, oh, this is fucking stupid. And then when they killed off, spoiler alert, what's her face that joins up with the governor, and he kills her at the end.
Oh yeah.
Lori? Lori Holden, I think, is the actress's name, because Lori is the wife.
Yeah,
also dies in this season.
She dies earlier than that.
She dies in that season.
No, she does, because she has the baby.
She has the baby.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. She's pregnant as a kid.
Well, we're on season 6 already. If you haven't seen season 3, you're slacking.
And, you know, like I said, I stopped at 3 because I was just so bored. But I loved season 2. I thought season 2 was, like, the best
When they're on the farm.
And that mid-season finale where they open up, like, you find out fucking Herschel has been hanging on to friends and family members in that farm because he thought they would be cured one day.
Fix them.
And, like, I'm like, let me build this up real quick for those people. Why I love season 2 so much. So, at the beginning of the season, they're leaving the military project compound. Just exploded. They're on the freeway, you know, and at one point, Carol has a daughter, a little girl, and she goes missing.
Sophie.
And Rick vows, like, I am going to search and I'm going to find her. And, like, every episode he's going out, damn near killing himself, risking his life, and he's got a family to find this little girl. Meanwhile, they're at the fun farm, and dude's like, "Okay, I guess you can hang out." And
Yeah,
then
after lunch,
you find out he's been hanging on to like his wife, I think, and
his
the
wife and
neighbors.
sister, the girl, or the brothers, and the neighbors and their kids,
Right,
and
and
just all the townspeople.
Rick freaks out, and this mid-season finale, they open up the barn, and he starts killing all these zombies, and the little girl is a zombie in there, and she was in there the entire fucking time, and that got me, man. I love that.
That was a good piece of writing.
I thought that was riveting TV right there. In the comics, I think the little girl lives. I don't think that's in there, and so like, not that had anything to do with when I was watching it, because I read them and forgot about them.
Sure.
So like when that happened, I was just like, no, because he was determined to find that little girl, and I was determined for him to find that little girl. I thought he was going to find her. Well, Never in my mind that I thought.
Well, they kept finding little clues, and they had little, maybe little nuggets of hope. They're like, oh well, we found the doll in the river, and this and that, and they go along, and I thought the same thing. I was like, they're going to find her.
They're going to find her. They have to.
She's going to be like tucked up in a closet somewhere. There was a couple of times when Daryl was out. Searching, and he's whips up the crossbow, and he comes around the corner and he sees something, and I'm like, oh, they found her. Like, that's right there, because Daryl, he was another one. He was super determined to find this little girl.
Right.
And I think that was the season that really changed Daryl as a character.
Right. He starts becoming, because and he has that flashback with his brother. He starts hallucinating. He sees his brother.
Yeah, when he gets thrown off the horse.
Mm-hmm. And he's down there in the ravine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, oh my god, I thought that was awesome. And another thing in that season, Shane. So like in the comic book, Shane's killed off right away because the writer thought, hey, my series isn't going to go anywhere, so I kind of want to tie up some loose ends. Right. And lo and behold, it's still going strong, and it's a TV show now. But in the show, they kept Shane around for 2 seasons.
Yeah, they killed him at the
end of 2.
At the end of 2.
And I thought he started becoming a stronger character. I did not want to see him die, despite the fact that
despite the fact that you hated him,
that he was a shithead, he was a bad guy, but he was an interesting character.
Well, and I think he was a good yin yang with Rick,
right?
Because he was over the top crazy about doing what's right for the group at all costs. He didn't care what it meant for his humanity or his sanity or anything like that. This guy was apeshit crazy, and Rick is like, oh, we have to hold hands and talk about it, which is really funny now, because now Rick
is he super crazy now?
Is like I think every bit as bad as Shane ever was.
Everybody is?
Rick is.
Oh, Rick is thinking everyone's like Shane?
No. Rick is just as bad as Shane ever was.
Okay.
I mean, Rick has stepped up into Shane's shoes and surpassed, I think. Yeah, he's exactly like him now.
Okay.
So
I want to get back into it, but
it's tough.
It's a matter of finding the time, and Rose, not that she would never watch it, but she didn't like horror stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world.
It's pretty gruesome. Like, as far as a TV series goes, a made-for-TV series. So,
yeah, I think I've seen some of the more recent kills. Like, they show the coolest,
Walking
top
Dead,
10
Walking Dead kills,
right? Or you see most shocking deaths this year in TV,
right?
That one. God, I remember that one. And also, I'm trying to finish American Horror Story season 4. But I don't find a lot of time for we just finished Castle. We're all caught up on Castle. We just finished Raising Hope, something that kind of a milestone because we started watching that together when we got together.
Right.
Now we're here coming up on a year together, and we just finished that. So I was kind of sad to see go. But oh well.
That's one of those things you find a TV series that you like, and it's once you get to the end of it, I have friends that used to watch Lost, and they were like,
right. And now at this point, I think Lost is too much a thing of its time to really get into now. I mean, I'm sure I can watch it and get into it, but
I watched
it won't have the. I know how it ends.
Yeah, well, it won't have the same kind of panache that it had, and it was
a
fresh.
gimmicky show. A bunch of people on an island and a new mystery every season.
Yeah.
And when you find out how it ends, it's kind of like, well, why do I really want to watch that?
why do I want to watch, 5 or 6 or however many seasons leading up to it?
That was one of those shows that you needed to have watched when it was on. I think nowadays people make TV series with the point. I mean, Netflix does it. Netflix dumps, their original series, all episodes at once, so you can sit there and marathon them. So people,
which is my absolute favorite thing to do right now.
It's like, why would anyone want to watch one episode and be like, well, I guess I gotta wait a week. Oh, episode 15, I guess I gotta wait through fucking 2 months before Christmas break's over with and watching, the next episode. When you can be like, oh my god, that was an awesome cliffhanger. What happened? Next episode.
Yeah, or just have autoplay through. You're like, I'll just watch one more. It's
like, why would anyone want to do that anymore?
Yeah, well, we're a product of our recent time.
Now, hold on, now that we're talking about that, let's rewind to where we were just like, movies can be too long, but yet we'll sit here for 50 hours and watch 10 episodes of a show.
But each episode is designed independently.
Right.
Each episode is designed to be short enough to keep your interest up for that 43 minutes of screen time.
Like reading a short story opposed to reading a book.
Yes. But those episodes are written that way. They're
semi-self-contained.
Semi-self-contained. A lot of TV series now are going to the 1 minute or 30-second flashback. Last time on The Living Dead, and
not only though they're not just going to tell you the last episode, they're going to tell you stuff from 2 seasons ago that's relevant to this episode.
And Sons of Anarchy did it.
Every show does it.
Yeah, I mean, it's super popular now, and they give you enough from, even if it's relevant to the episode, they will give you something from the first season.
Right.
If it's necessary.
In Game of Thrones season 5, the very last episode of this last season, they showed a scene from like the first episode of the first season because it was relevant.
Exactly.
So they jumped back 5 years to tell you something you may have forgotten in case you didn't watch it recently.
And a lot of TV series end up like that. And for the longest time, I thought, all these shows that I watch on a relatively regular basis. I was watching House when it was still on, and CSI and NCIS.
All shows I don't watch, but I know they're all good.
Yeah, they're great shows. I don't get cable anymore, so I basically wait until they're out on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't bother with cable.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Absolutely not. You got 100 channels at the least.
At the least.
You've got 100 channels that you can only watch one at a time. Not including the time that you're sleeping, not including the time you're at work, not including the time you're spending with your family, not including doing the errands you need to run when you're not at work, when you're not sleeping. And you've got 100 channels, so you can only watch one thing at a time.
That, and just the cost. The cost for the quality, in my opinion, of cable. This is gonna go down every road we can find today. But the cost for the quality of programming. There's a lot of shit that's on TV, current season stuff that I really enjoy. A lot of series that I've picked up out of boredom. Like, what's on, and just looking through on-demand shit, and then it's like, oh, that was a really great show, and then I'll watch them and I'm like, fuck, the season's over, and then I have to wait till the next season comes through. So most of the stuff that I watch
I will wait 10 years for a show to be over before I start watching it. So I don't have to wait.
Or at least a season. I'm more inclined to buy a season's worth of shows. Buy like a season pass or a season pass for iTunes, so you get the download as they come out.
The next episode comes out in 2 weeks. It'll download automatically. You've already got to pay for it. You don't got to wait for it.
Yeah, and
Amazon does that too, or at least they did.
There's a lot of services that'll sell you seasons by the episode, and then you get a price break after a certain point if you just buy the whole thing.
Yeah. So it's like $2 an episode on Amazon, or spend $20, you get them all. So you're
saving
75 cents instead of $2.
Whatever it is, you're saving money if you buy the season.
Yeah,
because it makes sense.
Right.
But a lot of TV series that I used to watch when we did have cable, you could flip through the channels and just pick something up. Like I would watch Law and Order,
the original
SVU, the new one,
okay,
or Criminal Minds, or different shows that just looked interesting at the time because it was on cable and I was watching TV and it's like, oh, well, I don't watch this show, but hey, this episode looks cool. A lot of shows that I used to watch, I thought were relatively independent. So each episode, you could watch that episode, enjoy the episode.
You can watch season 2, episode 15. You can watch season 5, episode 1, and be fine.
Exactly, and you wouldn't be missing much in the way of continual storyline.
But then you find that episode where they're talking about something, you're like, fuck, now I gotta watch it.
And that's one of the things that happens, But they have a lot of episodes that'll go on and on and on. Each episode is about nothing, really. Essentially, it's basically just a story in itself. And then, like you said, you have the continuity episode.
Yeah, you get that continuity episode where suddenly they're telling you, like, previously on. It's like, what? That last episode didn't say it could be continued.
Right?
What is this?
So you'll see something there. They'll be dealing with something in that episode that is, has to do with something that happened before. Which, not every episode is like that, but
look, guys, like I was saying, I'm caught up on Castle now. We were watching Castle. It's season 8 or 9 right now.
That's a pretty good run.
It is, and this last episode, the most recent one they had, we're watching it, and it shows, the producers, the 2 main stars are now producers on the show, and I'm thinking like, oh, they probably wanted to act this show, so they're like, well, we'll give up some money to keep it going, and it's not the best season. Like, the main plot of the show is that, have you watched Castle?
I think I've seen some episodes of it, but...
Okay, well, Castle's about... And here's another thing with plots being fucking rehashed. First episode of Castle, season 1. So it's about a detective, and it's a female detective, alright? And they're on this case where she's like, oh, this seems familiar. It turns out that Nathan Fillion plays Castle, and he's a
writer.
Mystery writer.
Okay, yeah, I have seen the show.
He's a mystery writer. And someone is killing people the way characters were killed in some of his books.
Right.
All right. And this show came out in like 2009, 2010, something like that. Fast forward to 2012, this movie The Raven comes out about Edgar Allan Poe. Somebody is killing people in the way Edgar Allan Poe killed some characters in his books. This is the same plot line as that first episode of Castle. Right. Castle came out first. Now, anyways...
Well, that has been an episode in a lot of different murder mystery TV series where they did it on NCIS, where one of the guys that's on the team is a writer. In his spare time, he writes books. Mm-hmm. One of their cases is somebody's killing people in the manner that are prescribed in his books.
Right.
And he's on the team, and they're investigating this whole thing. So, like you said,
right,
you have to tell these stories, and they go around and around and around.
So Castle is about a mystery writer who is, following this detective around as inspiration for his books. Now, each episode is self-contained. It's a new mystery, different killer, they solve it. But the main plot line that kind of runs through each of these seasons is her mother was killed. She was like a lawyer, and it was an unsolved mystery. Progressively through each season, they get new clues. This person did it. That person was actually working for somebody else who really did it. But then there's a person above that guy that was actually the one that, set out the hit and everything else like that. And it seemed like they solved it a couple of times. It seemed like the issue was good. But then it's like something else came up. And it's like right now in that season, she's like, they got married eventually, and she's like, oh, we have to be separated for my own reasons. And it's like, okay, I guess. And then why she separated from him is because there's like a huge kind of governmental conspiracy as to why this guy put out the hit to this guy that killed, her mother. And it's just the biggest fucking stretch. The biggest fucking stretch. Like, oh, we're separated because I've got a family that I don't want to get hurt, but we're still married, but,
Yeah.
Like, they could still go and kill, like, her ex-husband or a separated husband or his kid. It's like, that connection did not get severed.
Yeah.
In every show, they always find, the person who lived next door to you when you were born, and they kill them, Right. So it's like, it's a super stretch, and it's super fucking annoying when each episode they're trying to struggle to figure out how to get these two together in each episode and make it.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell when things like that, like you said, you can tell that maybe they weren't going to get re-upped or something like that, and then something changes, and you're like, okay, this isn't nearly as good as it used to be, but you're still attached to the characters, you're still attached to the storyline, so you're going to watch, some crap episodes and hope there's some good ones in there.
Right. So if this show ended on this season, it'd be fine. If it went another one that was better, because it's got to be, then I'd be fine with that too.
Sure.
But if the show's over with, I mean, I got at least the first 5 seasons were really good.
Yeah.
Like up until like they actually get together, and that season where they are together, that kind of works for me just fine.
Sure.
But then from that point on, they're constantly trying to figure out like how we can have these two be together in an episode, doing what they do.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to do that and still build tension between the characters, because when they weren't together, it was easy.
They had the sexual tension the entire time, but they had a banter. Castle's witty and funny,
right?
And she's a hard ass cop, and it's like he had a deal with the mayor because he plays golf. They're buddies, to where he'll be like, tell the police captain that I could be there,
right? So
that's how he's there.
Okay.
And then suddenly that police captain who they get along with, he's part of the main plot. He gets killed off in season 3. And they got a new captain in who's a woman that doesn't put up with Castle shit as much. But they find a way where she's like, okay, I guess. But, you're on edge. You're on,
right.
thin ice. And then suddenly Beckett goes to join the feds. Like, they hire her because she's good enough.
Right.
But suddenly they're like, oh, you fucked up. And she has to go back to being a detective. And it's like, well, how can we have Castle hang around? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he'll go become a private eye and get his license. And suddenly he's working a client that's kind of parallel to this case.
Sure. They're trying to drag him back in.
Oh my god, it's such a stretch, and it's like you have to put up with that each episode, like the first 10 minutes, to try and get them together.
Yeah.
Some of them are just, nails on a chalkboard.
Well, and so I think we talked about one of the other series that I watched. This was a couple of years ago now, or at least a year ago. Continuum.
Yeah.
It's a time travel story. They go back in time to try to fix things that happens in the future, and
like Quantum Leap.
Yeah, real similar to that kind of thing, but it's not a continual jump. It's like they go back in time, and then they're living in the timeline, changing things in the future that they're from.
You see the changes?
And as they go along, things change, and what ends up happening is they get, I think there was 2 seasons when I started watching it last year.
Is it over with now?
And it was 2 seasons, and then they stopped. They stopped making it.
Right, not enough.
And it wasn't on TV, right? There wasn't enough viewership or whatever happened. So they basically axed the show after 2 seasons, no payoff. Well, then another show comes out called Dark Matter. And it has a handful of characters.
Characters?
Not
actors.
Actors, excuse me. A handful of actors that were in Continuum.
What, from one job to the next?
Well, I mean, it's made by the same TV station, or produced, or whatever, put on air by
Sci-Fi.
Sci-Fi. So, I mean, they're in that area anyway. They work with these people. They're like, hey, we got this other show over here. You guys want to be on that?
Oh, God.
So
funny.
So anyways, this new show comes on. First season, right? Pilot comes on. I'm like, this is great. Like, this is a good show. Totally different storyline, not even similar.
Okay.
It's totally different. And I'm like, this is a good show. I like this. I like some of the characters that they're, some of the actors that are playing characters in the show already, because I've seen them in other stuff. So it's like, okay, cool. I can roll with this. Yeah. So I watched this. No sooner did the first season of Dark Matter end.
They cancel it.
No, it's still alive. It's still a live series. Yeah.
Okay.
And as soon as that's over with, or maybe it wasn't when it was over with. It was when
Mid-season.
it was concurrent or mid-season or something like that. Continuum comes back on the air,
Oh, yeah.
right? And they pay it off in a third season where it's like they're like, okay, look, we're gonna give you one more season to finish the story.
So now you got these same
So
actors.
hurry up.
You got these same actors that go back to the Continuum?
Well, they killed them pretty quickly. The actors that were in Dark Matter and Continuum.
To be like.
So I mean, well, and they were going to end the series of Continuum.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting was the producer on Dark Matter, or one of the main producers of Dark Matter, was one of the main producers of Continuum. So I wondered,
producer than the original Continuum, or same producer?
Same. So like this producer was running Continuum, and then they axed him, and then they came up with another idea. And
it worked.
Had
and
Dark Matter,
like,
and they're
cool.
like, okay, we like this one, we're going to keep it. And he's like, okay, here's the deal. Let me finish this one. Let me have one more season. And it was a short, I think
half season.
It was like a half season, half length.
Like a mini series instead of a TV season.
But they gave him. I thought it was nice that they gave him enough time to
at least
finish it. Because at the end of season 2, I was like, that was a shit ending. But if you leave it to your mind's imagination, you could say, okay, everything they did up to that point was fine.
Happy ending.
Fix the problem, and everything went back to, somewhat of normal. And they played the last episode of that season in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But
that shit you made up in your mind.
Yeah, they end it in such a way that you can make it up and be like, okay, cool, everything that happened worked out and it's over.
Yeah.
So that if they had to leave it there, they could.
Right.
But when they bring in the new season, it's like they blow that out of the water and everything's fucked up. So regardless of that, what I was basically trying to get at is how
too long.
The Revenant's too long. No, how they have to stretch things together, and they really had to do that in the third season of Continuum, and they're like really grasping for
He's
meaning
like a full
and for
season.
connection.
They're like half a season.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, half a season, but I got to have this, and this. They're like, okay, we'll give you 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Miniseries. Clear up you want. All the money you need.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can see that it was rushed. There's not a lot of fluff and filler. Not that the writing was bad, because the writing for what they did was good, or as good as the rest of the series was, anyhow. But you could see that it was like the storyline was rushed. They had to push the story along too fast to get where they needed to be by the end of the season.
Did you ever watch Arrested Development?
That is not a show that I ever watched. I don't think.
It's really, really funny. And it's really good because it's witty. It's smart writing.
Sure.
It's smart comedy, and you have to watch every single second because they throw some stuff back, and it's something you have to pay attention to, and you laugh at everything. And it had 2 seasons, and then like they axed them on the 3rd season because it's a shorter season. Like, because I bought them after it was all over and done with.
Right.
Buy season 1, buy season 2. They're both like 3 or 4 discs long, and then you buy season 3, and it's like 2 discs. It's like 15 episodes. But then 4 years later, Netflix was like, "Oh, we'll do another season." By that point, all these actors had kind of like, "I've got this job, I've got this job."
Making other TV shows.
That 4th season that Netflix did is, I don't want to come off sounding condescending or pretentious, but it's genius. The way that they wrote it to where, like, each episode is kind of a character, self-character serving. So it's like, this episode is about this character, this episode is about this character, because they're kind of, you rarely see them together in the season, but it pays off. So you'll watch the first 5 episodes, and then on episode 6, you'll be like, oh my god, when he got hit by that car, it was his brother that did it. And you find out now because you see what he's doing in his day, and you find out he was driving the car and doing this other thing. So like every few episodes, it'll pay off something that happened earlier on, and it's so convoluted and it's so fucked up. But you watch it and you're like, oh my god, yes. The only thing is, I hated how it ended on that 4th season.
Okay.
It had a non-ending, in my opinion.
And that's lame. When you get something, you expect something out of, and then there's nothing.
Right. It was a genius season, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And I was able to sit there and marathon it because Netflix the seasons that way.
Right.
And then it gets to the last episode, and it's like, dude, I had no idea where they could possibly go with this, where they can end it off, and it is stupid. It was the stupidest fucking thing ever, because it was not an ending.
Yeah.
And they haven't made another season yet, so. And all of the other Netflix shows have like 2-3 seasons. I think House of Cards is on season 3. Hemlock Grove, I believe, did 3. Orange is the New Black is on 3. BoJack Horseman's got 2. You know, it's like there's shit there.
And on a note of writing, that you were talking about how it's, you know, one episode's about one character and then you move to the next episode and continuing on. I'm pretty sure it was season 5 of The Walking Dead that I just recently finished watching. And they did that because they...
Episode 1, you've got 5 guys. You go check over here, you go check over here, you go check over here. And then you've got single episodes where they find out where everyone went.
No.
Like how their day went.
It's not... I don't think it was season 5. Maybe it was 4. But anyways, it was after... after they leave the prison, and everybody gets split up, and each episode goes with one group, basically, until...
It's kind of like that in 3, too, because...
Yeah.
The hell's her name? The blonde chick that dies, that the governor kills, she's trying to kill him.
Right, she's Michonne's friend, I remember that part.
Right, because they get split up at the beginning of that season. They go off to prison, and she goes off with Michonne. Michonne saves her, and they go off to the community. What is it called?
They end up at Woodbury.
Happy Falls.
Right.
Whatever it is.
So...
And suddenly, Homeboy's back. Merle.
Yeah, Merle.
But they do that in, what, season 4 you're saying?
I think so. After...
Daryl doesn't die. He's still alive, right?
Yeah, Daryl's still up. Anyway.
Glenn's still alive, too, right?
Yes, Glenn is still alive.
But they made it seem like he died.
They may have made it seem that way.
But he didn't die.
He did not die.
Is he a zombie?
No.
Is he going to be a zombie?
The last episode I watched of the last episode of season 5, it is unclear
if he's going to be a zombie.
If he may or may not end up being a zombie. There was one of those pile up things where it's like one zombie and another one, and then like somehow at the end of that he comes out of it. He comes out of the. They don't show him getting out of it. It just happens.
Right. They're like, oh, Glenn's alive.
But one of
bit his dick off there. So that pile.
And you never know.
Wearing pants.
You never know. You don't see it. But one of the most interesting things that I think they've done with that style of writing, where you follow one group and then another group and another group.
Right. So you have 5 episodes about the same day.
Yeah, and exactly, and it's I don't know if there's a word for it, but it's like time lapse. So you'll watch one group do whatever they're doing, and then you go to another group, but you'll see cues, you'll see things in the scene that were from the other group. So they'll cross paths, but not at the same time.
Right. You don't know why suddenly his motorcycle was gone in that episode. It's because so-and-so found him. Was like, oh, Daryl's around. I need the motorcycle.
Yeah, and whatever happens.
You find out why there's mysteries that they never fucking paid off for. They pay off in the next episode.
Exactly. It might take, 4 episodes to get to where it makes sense.
Right.
And that was one of the things.
That's what I like about
the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead. Is it lets me think about it. It lets me try to figure things out and what's going on, what's going to happen. Who's going to backstab who, and
is Maggie still alive in that show?
Maggie, yes, is still alive.
Did they have a kid? Did she ever get pregnant? She's pregnant now.
They have not said anything about her being pregnant.
They've been banging for like a couple episodes.
As of
season 5,
like there's
birth control, really.
Pull out, brother.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Hey,
So, but she doesn't have. They haven't.
They have not been knocked up as of yet.
Even though you would think that would happen.
You would think that
in a world where they don't really give a fuck.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, it's like they don't stock condoms at a local store that they can't even find anyways.
Well, that's
We
how
need
that's
to
how
go
their
for supplies.
that's how their whole
We can't find
relationship
a store.
that's how their whole relationship got started with Maggie and
Glenn.
Glenn.
Well, no, it was like boy and girl. There aren't a lot of boy and girls around that I can do. She's married.
Well, yeah,
She's
age
too young.
appropriate.
So it's like,
Boy and
we're
girl
the
couples.
only ones. I guess he's Asian, whatever.
Right. So, I don't know. I am impatiently awaiting season 6.
Is 5 all over and done with?
Yes.
That's current.
They're on season 6.
6 is on right now.
It's on right now, and they have
Episodes
there's
you haven't
episodes that I haven't seen because I don't currently own or have. But and then
That show seems to have like 3 seasons a year.
You
Seems
know-
like every time I turn around and look, they're like, "Oh, season 6 is starting." Thought season 5 just ended.
right. Well, and I'm curious about how the time division for seasons works because I'll be watching one season and it'll be over, but like 3 or 4 weeks later, it's back on again with a fresh season.
Yeah.
And in some shows, it's going to be on from
September.
this
New
month.
season starts, ends in May.
Right.
You got the summer break. That's your regular network shows. Now HBO, they'll do 12 episodes, 10, 12 episodes of a show. They'll have 3 going in this block. This one will end. A new show will begin as soon as that one ends. So it's not like it's going to be the next season because that won't probably come back
Right.
on until the following January.
Right.
But you'll have 10 different seasons of shows concurrently running on HBO. So there is
Right.
not a break for shows. So you can watch your season 3 of this. It ends the next week in that same time slot.
Right.
That other show you like starts.
Gotcha.
That's how HBO works.
And I noticed that in network to network they'll do that, where one show's over, then they start another show. But yeah,
That's AMC. AMC's Walking Dead, right?
AMC is Walking Dead.
It was Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad's over.
Yeah.
It was Mad Men. Mad Men's over.
Is it?
I think Mad Men's over. Isn't it? Is it still going?
I'm not sure. I don't follow.
I always wanted to watch Mad Men, but never did.
I always like the clothes.
I mean, well, 50s, 60s.
I like the suits.
Marketing. They're always smoking and drinking in that show.
What's wrong with that?
Womanizing.
Womanizing, smoking.
I mean,
and
that's what
drinking.
they did in the 50s,
That's
right?
what the 50s was all about: smoking, drinking, and womanizing,
And wearing suits.
and wearing suits.
Anyways, you were supposed to watch The Revenant, and you didn't.
I told you that I didn't.
Is that the only thing I watched? I feel like I watched a couple other things. I did. I watched Sisters, and then I watched The Big Short.
How was The Big Short?
You know, I really, really liked it. And, you know, like, Rose watched it with me, and, like, she fell asleep during it because she didn't, like, I wasn't like, hey, you need to watch this.
Right.
I knew going in, like, might be good for everybody.
Right.
But, like, we go in there, it's the small theater, and it's just a bunch of, like, old people. 60s, 70s.
Senior discount days.
And, you know, this was Sunday, and it was just full of old people. And it was full.
Did
So
it
all
smell
the
like,
old people.
Did it smell like old people?
No, it didn't smell like anything like popcorn in movie theaters. But yeah, no, it was just a bunch of old people, and I thought it was riveting as fuck.
Right.
Like, I mean, all it is a bunch of talking,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of people talking to each other. But I thought it was really good, and I want to watch it again because it blows my mind the shit that this fucking country gets away with, and these businesses, these banks.
I'm not surprised, but yeah, I get where you're
Like,
going with
it fucking blows my mind. And you know,
Absolutely.
and like that's how they feel in the movie. Like Steve Carell is amazing. Like he's sitting there and he's talking to this guy, and this guy's telling him everything that he does and he gets away with, and Steve Carell's like heartbroken. Like I can't believe that this shit's going on. And you know, the conceit of that movie, the way it begins, is everybody is so. What's the word I'm looking for? Sure. Everyone's so sure, for lack of a better word, that houses are going to be, you know, perfect. They're always going to make money. Everything's going to be
They can't
great.
go up forever.
You know, and everyone is so deluded. And Christian Bale plays like, what do you call those people that are like really, really smart but like socially awkward?
Oh,
idiot savant.
yeah, that's. I mean, that's not even. I don't even
That's
think
not
that's a
even right.
fair. That's a fair description. I know what you're talking about. I mean, there's people that are, borderline
Geniuses.
genius, but
Like they got like
you
Asperger's
can't.
syndrome or something.
This kid's Asperger's as fuck.
What is that?
I don't know. I heard it on something.
Sounds familiar.
It was a
Like I just heard
comedian.
it too.
There was a comedian, and he was talking about making fun of somebody or whatever in his joke. But yeah, this kid's Asperger's as fuck. That's what he kept.
I want to say I saw that on something like a funny show or something. But Christian Bale plays this guy that's really really smart, but it doesn't get emotional about anything. He doesn't understand being happy or being sad or being mad. He just kind of does things, and he's really smart. And he gets all this information. Like he's got like an intern or something, and he's like, "I want you to get me all this information." I was like, "Yeah, right." And he's like, "No, I do." And he's like, "Well, isn't that like thousands of houses information per thing?" He's like, "Yeah." So okay, I'll get right on it. And he's looking at all this information, and he sees that the housing is going to just fall out of the floor, So he goes and there's a lot to follow in this movie, and they explain it through various things, but he goes and he bets again. Like, he places a bet, essentially, that houses aren't going to be worth shit anymore.
Right.
And he goes to 10 different banks, and he's like, 100,000, 200,000. I want to buy equity or whatever in all of the houses that you own, and I'm going to bet against you. And they're like, "Oh, sure. How about like 100,000?" And he's like, "Can we make it 2?" And they're like, "Sure." And like the second he leaves, they're like, "Oh my God, easy money, ha ha ha." You know what I mean? Like they think they just fucking scammed this guy. And what happens in this movie, I knew was gonna fucking happen. So he buys up all he spends like $1 billion worth between all these banks. And on top of that, he has to pay the mortgages for all these houses and everything else. Which his boss is like, "You're a fucking idiot, I want my money, blah, blah, blah." But since he does all this, someone talks to somebody else about it, and another guy talks about it, and through various situations, Steve Carell's little group firm, they see that he's doing it, so they go and do the same thing. And then there's like these two dudes that are trying to have a business startup. They catch wind of it, and they do it too. So you're following Christian Bale, Steve Carell, and then these two young kids.
Right.
And they find out this information, that information, and they're a bunch of real estate people that are like, "Oh, anybody can get credit and buy a house, fucking illegal people, we give them, credit, all these people." And they're like, "Oh, it's fine." And they're like, "Don't you think, what happens when these people can't pay their mortgage?" They're like, "What? Everyone pays their mortgage." And they talk about this at the beginning that some guy back in the 50s and 60s came up with a scam to scam everyone that buys houses and pays rent. But at some point, fucking, our economy fails, people start losing their jobs, they're not paying their mortgage. And that's what these people are betting against. And because Christian Bale sees that it's going to happen, and it does happen. And of course, what happens is the bank does not pay up on their, but they are able to, they are able to sell at some point and get some money back, and still gain a profit.
Mm-hmm.
But the banks fucking when they start because Christian Bale's starting to call these people that were so happy to sell him everything, like, "Yeah, no, give us all the money you want." So then they're not returning his calls, and he's talking to one, he's like, she's like, "Oh, well, our system's down." He's like, "Oh yeah, your system was down, and this bank, their system was down, and the other bank, they had a power outage, and blah blah blah. All of you conveniently at the same time couldn't get back to me at the same time." And they fucked them over, and then the banks got a bailout, and it was frustrating to see that these fucking people,
well, the worst part of it is that that it's real.
Right, it's absolutely real. I mean, it's a real movie about real things. They're playing real people. And, at one point, Steve Carell, at the very end of the movie, he was he was the biggest holdout. He didn't want to sell because he didn't want to fuck anybody over. These people were going to get fucked over because they made these deals against the banks. And to get their money back from the banks had to fuck other people over and everything else like that. And he didn't want to do it, but he eventually did it. And he's like, when we do this, I know that they're just going to get away with it. Nothing's going to happen. They're going to go on, blah, blah, blah. And Ryan Gosling's kind of like a narrator of the movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, but they did start arresting people, and they did start doing this. And he's like, oh, wait, no, they didn't. Just kidding. They all got away with it.
They all got away with it. Which is true, because they fucking did. So, yeah.
But, and I want to watch it again just to... Because it was a lot of information. It was a very informational movie. They're telling you a lot of things in it, and the acting's great too. So,
well, that's good. And how do you think that compares with like Wolf of Wall Street?
Well, Wolf of Wall Street.
I mean, it's not the same situation, but
look, I've seen like the movie Wall Street with Charlie Sheen and Michael Douglas. Right. Did not like it because it's a little too dry and too informational.
Sure.
In a world that I don't care about.
Right.
But watching Wolf of Wall Street, they kind of hold your hand a little bit,
right,
and explain it with the basics, opposed to just kind of Wall Street not explaining anything. They're just doing stuff,
right,
that I don't get.
So they hold your hand a little bit. Plus, they make it fun with
all the
titties and money and beer and
all the drugs and everything.
Yeah.
And like that's what you're watching. And then also you have to see that they're fucking scamming everybody because you see them doing the funny stuff where they're like on the phone and he's like doing the spanking thing. Like you see him basically making fun of the guy he's talking to on the phone.
Right.
That guy can't see them doing it. But I mean, Wolf of Wall Street's funny, and it's a movie that you can watch and be like, oh, look how fucked up these people are. But The Big Short, you're watching, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe
it makes you sad to watch it because you know it's...
Yeah, it's
because both stories were real.
Yeah.
Both stories were based on very actual events.
Right.
But
Wall Street's about a person.
Right.
The Big Short is about a situation that happened to America.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's funny things in it because Steve Carell's character is kind of like a goofball. Like, he doesn't mind speaking up and saying shit to people.
Right.
Like, they go to this conference in Vegas and the dude's out there talking. And Ryan Gosling's like, don't say anything. Okay, don't do anything. And the guy's talking and Steve Carell raises his hand. And he's like, oh, the Q&A's later. And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, fine. You seem very intent on asking me this question. And he throws out this question that the guy can't really answer. And then he goes, he asks him for a number. He's like, zero. It's zero. And, but the guy keeps on talking and he walks out and everything. But, I mean, there are funny parts in it. But for the most part, it's just like, the scammers out there, the people that do nothing and get away with everything.
Sure.
And that movie was not too long. But, whatever.
Well, and at the same time, as I will say, there are movies that are too long, and we've already talked about the 2 hour mark.
I know what you're going to say.
I'm going to say
there are movies that are
not long enough. And additionally,
at 3 hours, I could have watched another 3.
Yeah, I mean, and not that maybe 2.5 hours isn't long enough, but there's a 2.5 hour movie that's too long, and there's a 2.5 hour movie that you don't care. It was 2.5 hours because you'll sit there and watch every second of it over and over again.
Right. It's good writing, bad writing, and sometimes good writing can be long too.
Sure.
Revenant, it was great writing. It was fun. I liked it. I liked watching it. It was a very graphic movie. Very, very graphic movie.
So don't take the kids to see that one.
Well, I mean, look. Let me explain something to you. In Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker finds himself stuck in the snow. Oh wait, no. Han Solo finds Luke Skywalker stuck in the snow. And he takes his lightsaber and he cuts open that tauntaun.
Right.
And they both crawl inside so that they don't die.
I thought they should have pad on the outside.
Okay. Same thing happened in The Revenant. He has to cut open his horse and you see him pull out all these guts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got like you don't see him snap the ribs. You see it from like the other side, but he's like, he's kicking it and shit so that he can get in there and not die. But you do see him pull those guts out, and it's I don't want to say like it's intense, but it's super graphic. Yeah. But like you saying don't bring the kids to it, it's like, well, that's kind of like the same scene that's in Empire Strikes Back. That's like a kids movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like this. It's very violent, very graphic.
Sure. And I could tell by the trailers that it was going to be.
But listen to this. It's based on a true story, but the majority of that movie is all fiction.
Sure. The
true story part is that homeboy was attacked by a bear. They thought he was dead. They buried him. he went after the guys that did it, and they're like, hey, we were just kind of thought you were dead, we're doing what we have to do, but we're doing this other thing now, and he let him go. He didn't fucking kill him.
Didn't chase him down and kill him.
Didn't chase him down and kill him. He let them all go.
Yeah.
He found them all, but they were like, hey, sorry, and he's like, okay.
He's like, okay.
That's the real story.
That's the real story.
But, I mean, he did have gangrene and shit in real life, and he fucking, like, laid down on a bunch of maggots, they ate it away.
Gross.
But he you know, in this movie, he's got, like, an Indian son, and, like, he's going through hell, and everything else like that.
So they just stretched the fuck out
of it. Oh, they
of
stretched the fuck out of this movie like you wouldn't believe. Like, he did not have a son. I mean, he might maybe had a son in real life, but what I read was not part of the story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you were talking about last week in the trailers where they showed him, they killed the son.
That's what the trailer looked like it showed, yeah.
He does do that. I guess that's all I got. He does kill the son. Tom Hardy does kill the son.
Right.
He kills the son right in front of Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, because, like, DiCaprio at this point, like, he was mauled by that bear, and that goes on for a while. Not that didn't necessarily need to be cut short, but that goes on for a while, and the bear falls. Like, he stabs the bear, he's like fucking stabbing the bear and shit. And they both fall down the hill. Like, he falls down the hill, and the bear kind of fucking falls down the hill and rolls off on top of him. So when they come find him, they gotta push the bear out. They're like 5 guys. They're having a hard time pushing the bear.
Grizzly bear off the top of this guy.
And then they're carrying him. They're like, we can't pull him up the hill. It's like, okay, 2 guys stay behind. But he's, you know, Tom Hardy plays like a hard-ass dickhead guy. And he's sitting there talking to him. He's like, okay, you know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kill you, all right? Just blink if you want this. You want me to end this for you? Just blink, okay? Just blink. You know, and...
I blinked!
You know, like, at the end of the movie, you would think that's how it happened. But he does. He's not blinking. And he's like, okay, just blink if you want to, you know, end this. And he blinks. So, Tom Hardy, you know, puts his hands over... What he does is he, like, shoves, like, a cloth in his mouth. And then, like, he covers his nose and his mouth, and then he shoves his hand in his mouth, something like this. It was really weird, really bizarre. And then the son comes over and is like, what are you doing? So Tom Hardy fucking kills him. And Leonardo DiCaprio sees it. But then at the end of the movie, after he's gotten all better, Tom Hardy's like, we had a deal. And DiCaprio's like, there was no deal. We didn't have a deal. You're full of shit. You killed my son. And so they kind of fight. And he kills Tom Hardy. Well, no, he doesn't kill Tom Hardy. He fucks him up real bad. And he's like, we had a deal. And he shoves him into the river. And the Indians get him and they scalp him. Now, Tom Hardy plays this guy where he's got, like, a chunk of his head had previously been scalped, but he got away from some Indians. And then I guess, you know, at this point, some Indians fucking scalp him. And, like, there was this kind of subplot where there was these French guys, like this French encampment, that were having some dealings with these Indians. And the chief was like, you know, you can have these pelts that we stole from that military group when we raided their thing. And he's like, but we want horses and guns to go find my daughter. And they're like, fine. And then you later, DiCaprio, are we going too long? Okay. You know, DiCaprio, you know, comes along to this group, and you see the main French dude, like, they have the girl. They had the girl the entire time, and he's, like, raping the Indian girl, and DiCaprio comes by and rescues her. And then at the end of the movie, that group of Indians that scalped Tom Hardy, she was one of them, so they just kind of walk by him and let him live. I don't know, like, there was something, like, that whole French group part. Unnecessary. Could have cut that out. I mean, didn't need to see that the girl was one of them that he rescued and didn't scalp him.
Right.
They could have just not scalped him out of honor or some shit like that.
Yeah.
They could have cut that part out completely because it had nothing to do with the plot, other than that little thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Indians raided at the beginning. They're on their way. He gets attacked by the bear. Military group goes back. They leave him for dead. They go back to the fort. Find out they were lying. Left him for dead.
Yeah.
DiCaprio. That's the movie. That could have been, like, they could have cut out a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you see that where they try to expand that universe a little too much.
Yeah, no, they could have cut out a good 45 minutes. $1.45 for that movie would have been perfect. Would have been perfect. you know, I mean, he goes off of a cliff with the horse, and that's when he goes into it, and he was being chased down by Indians. He could have just gone off that cliff with the horse because he didn't know the cliff was there.
Horse got spooked.
Didn't need to be chased by Indians. He comes upon a guy that puts him in like a little fucking teepee kind of tree thing, and puts the maggots on him. He could have done that himself. You know, they could have cut down a lot of that. But anything else we want to talk about?
I think we covered the gamut today.
We're good.
So,
all right,
we'll sign off.
Call that an episode. Hopefully, I'll get this up so people can listen to it Sunday morning. Even though no one listens to these shows, but anyway,
my mom listens.
I think we've been getting quite a few more views lately.
Yeah, well, it's expanding.
Hopefully, the universe is expanding.
The universe.
All right. Anyways, that was it for today. I'm Matt Bonta.
Cory Easley.
Thanks for listening.